Chelsea Football Club, one of the most successful teams in modern football history. But in March 2022, that club was suddenly thrown into chaos, not by a bad season, not by mismanagement, but by a political decision from the UK government. And the worst part? The government claimed this was about justice, about standing up to Putin's Russia. But the real victims weren't Putin or the Kremlin. They were the players, the staff, the fans, and the club itself. Today we are exposing the hypocrisy behind the UK government's Chelsea sanctions. Roman Abramovich, a Russian billionaire, bought Chelsea in 2003. Over 19 years, he invested over $2 billion into the club, paying off debts, building world-class facilities and turning Chelsea into a European powerhouse. He never took a penny in dividends. Instead, he loaned the club money and wrote it off. In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. The UK, along with other Western nations, imposed sanctions on Russian oligarchs linked to Putin. The Abramovich was named as one of them, accused of having close ties to the Kremlin. On 10th March 2022, the UK government froze all his UK assets, including Chelsea Football Club. But here's the first hypocrisy. The government didn't just sanction Abramovich, it punished the entire club, treating Chelsea as if it were a weapon of war, not a cultural institution loved by millions. To keep Chelsea alive, the government issued a special license, but it came with brutal restrictions. Chelsea could still play matches and pay staff, but almost everything else was banned. Imagine being a club that just won the Champions League and suddenly you can't buy players, can't sell shirts, can't even sign new contracts. Players like Antonio Rudiger and Andreas Christensen walked away for free because Chelsea couldn't offer them a deal. The club's value was being destroyed, not by sport, but by politics. And the fans? They were told to keep supporting the club, but they couldn't buy tickets, couldn't buy new kits, and had no idea if the club would even exist in a year. The government said it was protecting a cultural asset, but the rules made it nearly impossible for that asset to survive. The UK government claimed that this was about standing up to Putin and Russian aggression, but Abramovich had already announced he was selling Chelsea and wanted the proceeds to go to a charitable foundation for Ukrainian war victims. He wasn't trying to profit, he was trying to exit cleanly. So why did the government freeze the club instead of just blocking Abramovich from accessing the money? Why punish the club, its staff, and its fans when the owner himself was offering to give the money to Ukraine? Here's the real double standard. Other clubs owned by wealthy foreigners, including those with questionable regimes, weren't treated this way, but Chelsea, a club that had done nothing wrong, was put under a financial straitjacket. The government claimed it was about not letting Abramovich profit, but the result was that Chelsea itself was being punished for his alleged links. In May 2022, after weeks of chaos, the government finally approved the sale of Chelsea to the Todd Boehly Clear Lake Consortium for 4.25 billion euros, but the proceeds, around 2.5 billion euros, were frozen in a UK bank account, with the government insisting it must go to humanitarian causes in Ukraine. Here's the next layer of hypocrisy. The money is still frozen years later, and the UK government is now threatening to take Abramovich to court if he doesn't agree to let it all go to Ukraine. But legally, that money is his. He sold the club under UK law, and the government is now trying to seize it through political pressure, not a fair legal process. So the same government that claims to stand for the rule of law is now trying to force a private businessman to hand over billions, using the club as a bargaining chip. Chelsea was never just a football club, it became a political hostage. The sanctions didn't just hurt Chelsea in the short term, they damaged the club long term. With no transfers, no new contracts, and sponsors fleeing, Chelsea entered a period of instability. The club had to rebuild from scratch while other teams kept spending freely. The government claimed it was acting on principle, but it chose the easiest target, a football club, instead of going after the real levers of Russian power, like oil and gas imports. It's easy to point at a football club and say, look, we are taking a stand. It's much harder to make real economic sacrifices that actually hurt Russia. And in the process, an innocent club, its staff and its fans were collateral damage in a political game. If you agree that this was hypocrisy, not justice, smash that like button, subscribe and share this video. Let's start a conversation about how governments use sport as a political tool and how fans always end up paying the price.